Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. Now for today's video, I'd like to go over just what exactly is canon in the Jurassic Park franchise. If you're unfamiliar with what the word canon means, don't worry, the general definition is simply a general law, rule, principle, or criterion by which something is judged. You could also call it a collection or list of sacred books accepted as genuine. Now, of course, due to the fact that Jurassic Park started out as a novel by Michael Crichton before being adapted to the big screen by Steven Spielberg, we have to make a difference between what is considered canon in Crichton's published books, as well as Spielberg's 5 movies. They're 2 different universes. But that's not the only other thing we need to consider. You see, in the early 90s, there was actually a storyline that continued off of the plot that we got to see in the very first Jurassic Park movie in comic book form. Not that many people in the general public know about these comics' existence, unfortunately, but don't worry, I'm going to try and make this as simple as I possibly can. It's really not that difficult, to be completely honest. First off, let's start with the books. This one speaks for itself. Michael Crichton wrote Jurassic Park and The Lost World, which came out in 1990 and 1995 respectively. This is the source material that everything else bases itself off of. These books are the beginning of Jurassic Park itself. Now let's move on to the movies. These consist of the 5 films produced under Universal and Amblin. These are all canon unto themselves and play off of each other in notable ways. Every one of these movies takes place in the same universe as the movie that came before and the movie that came after. Now let's talk about the more obscure stuff. Topps Comics actually created their own unique story to build off of the original 1993 movie that was directed by Steven Spielberg. These sequels include the Jurassic Park Raptor series and the first part of the Return to Jurassic Park arc. If you like Robert Muldoon, well then these are the stories for you, because in a hilarious reveal, they actually tell the audience that he survived his clever girl encounter in the first movie just to realize that everyone left him on Isla Nublar in the helicopter at the end. Have fun with that. Now, this is where things can get a little tricky, because it is definitely not the end of everything that exists as far as Jurassic Park stories go. You see, to coincide and support some of these movie releases, there have actually been supplemental materials sold to the general public as well. I'm sure most of you are familiar with video games like Trespasser and the 2011 Telltale story. These were products made to originally support the movies in which they were basing their material off of. For example, Jurassic Park the game used the park brochure that can be seen and used by Alan Grant in the first movie as a means for introducing one of their new dinosaurs, the Herrerasaurus. They also incorporated 2 secret species into the story that were deleted off of InGen's list and kept hidden from the general public. But ever since its inception, Jurassic Park the game has had a difficult time finding its footing in hard, factual canon. For one, the character of Jerry Harding looks to be at least 15 years younger than his real-life counterpart, real-life Jurassic Park producer and actor Jerry Molen. He's also missing the mustache that the character is supposed to have during the events of the first film. Other issues like JP3 pteranodons flying around the island and the T-Rex breaking through the visitor center doors make Jurassic Park the game hard to consider as taking place for, quote, matter of fact. Colin Trevorrow, the creative lead and driving force behind the entire Jurassic Park franchise as we know it, has even come out and stated that this video game and others like it should be viewed as soft canon. Basically, he's saying that you can't take it 100% seriously, but that doesn't mean that you should write it off completely. Mount Sibo, the volcano that destroys all of Isla Nublar in Fallen Kingdom, gets its name from this 2011 Telltale release, making the name of the volcano movie canon. So some things do bleed over into what matters. Trespasser is a trickier one because a lot of it doesn't make any sense to anything that it's supposed to be setting itself around. But I'll make this real simple. That video game is built off of the 1993 Jurassic Park incident taking place in 1989. This was because it wanted to incorporate a lot of novel canon into its universe. Well, it definitely did, but that unfortunately renders it unable to be considered movie canon, which is what it was going for. You see, The Lost World takes place 4 years after Jurassic Park, and in the movie canon, Jurassic Park happened in 1993, not 1989. So it's pretty simple. Now, of course, Topps didn't stop with just the Jurassic Park Raptor and Return to Jurassic Park comic book series. There was actually a whole ton of other stories that came out in the 90s that built off of the movie or did new original things. None of these really related to each other though, and all of them can be seen as taking place in their own little unique universes. In other words, they're all standalone. You can't connect them to anything, and they were never really made for that anyway. This is also true for the video games that were coming out around the same time. As much as I love Dr. Grant riding a Gallimimus and mowing down people with an AK-47, it isn't canon to anything except itself. IDW would later go on to make more Jurassic Park comic stories that were independent from one another, yet all of them built off of the lore that was established by the first 3 movies. Again, these are all standalone and don't belong to anything other than themselves. To make everything as clear as it possibly can be, you have Crichton's books, the Spielberg-produced movies, and one instance of a couple comic stories coinciding with each other. These are the 3 canons you should really pay attention to, and honestly, I'd recommend only paying attention to the books and films. The books are the source material, the films are what's currently being produced, and the comics are long dead and gone. Now we have to talk about the websites, or viral marketing, that's come out in support of the movies. So far, a few sites have been made. The Lost Worlds website, Masrani Global, the Dinosaur Protection Group site, and Extinction Now. All of those are canon to the movies, except for the Lost Worlds website. And let's talk about why. This website that came out way back in the late 90s gives us a ton of information on the dealings and memos that were going around InGen after the fall of Jurassic Park. Here we learn that the company went back to Isla Nublar and killed off all of the animals. There was a small deleted scene from The Lost World where Peter Ludlow states that demolition, deconstruction, and disposal of Isla Nublar facilities, organic and inorganic, cost the company $126 million. Let's talk about why none of that is relevant. In Jurassic World, we learn that all of the dinosaurs are still on Isla Nublar and that a certain old scarred-up T-Rex was from the original Jurassic Park, meaning nobody killed her. But the plot thickens even more, with a simple fact being that this website gives information that was never meant to be taken seriously. For example, Psittacosaurus is said to bring in the big bucks to the theme park because that dinosaur got a whole day dedicated to it. On Psittacosaurus Day, senior citizens got into Jurassic Park for free, and kids got in at half price. Now you tell me, in what universe was Jurassic Park ever open to the public in 1997? Where is that canon? Spoiler alert, nowhere. The reason this dinosaur and this information is in the Lost Worlds website is because it was meant as an advertisement for Jurassic Park The Ride and the new movie that was about to come out. Not to mention the fact that some of the stuff that's in here has actually been adopted by the Dinosaur Protection Group and said to have been cancelled, means that it cannot be considered movie canon. However, the new marketing websites that have been produced for the new movies absolutely can be, and this is coming straight from the mouth of Colin Trevorrow himself. With all of that out of the way, let's address some of the information surrounding these new sites. Do they align with everything in the movies that have come out? Well, they better have, right? Seeing as how they are said to be canon to the movie universe. There's no better way to test this stuff than by looking at the released InGen list. Here we can see all of the dinosaurs that were planned to be shown off in Jurassic Park. So let's try something from JP3. When they're talking about what creature attacked their airplane, Dr. Grant asks Billy what he thinks could possibly have been the culprit. Billy thinks it could have been a Suchomimus or a Baryonyx. This is before he's told that the real dino was Spinosaurus aegypticus. Billy tells Alan that this is odd because he doesn't remember that particular creature being on InGen's list, which Grant agrees that it is odd because it wasn't on the list. So if Spinosaurus is on InGen's list, that's a flub. But after a simple glance, we'll see that it is not only not on the list, which is coherent with what's come before, Baryonyx and Suchomimus are indeed on the list, which verifies what Billy said in the movie. However, many paleontology enthusiasts will probably note that Suchomimus is odd for being on that list, with some asserting that it shouldn't be on there because in our real world, it wasn't found until 1997 and named in 1998. This is not an argument. When Billy Brennan says the name Suchomimus in Jurassic Park 3 as being something that could have attacked them on Isla Sorna, that means the movie canon has Suchomimus on InGen's list. The film supports this by Billy being surprised it's Spinosaurus, because that dinosaur isn't on the list. That's it. Case closed. Furthermore, you absolutely cannot force our real-world paleontology findings on Jurassic Park. Why? Because from the very beginning, Jurassic Park has set its reality apart from our own. In the movie canon, Alan Grant, a well-respected paleontologist, says that Tyrannosaurus Rex vision is based on movement, and that the animal will lose you if you don't move. They show this happen in the film itself. In that film's world, this is a tested and proven paleontological theory. In the novel, the reason this happens is because of the frog DNA that's inside of the T-Rex. But we're not talking about the novels, are we? Alan Grant had this theory before ever going to the island. Never mind the fact that another paleontologist, Robert Burke, cites an animal to be a Compsognathus triassicus, which is an amalgam of what we have in our real world, Compsognathus longips and Procompsognathus triassicus. He also says this was found by Frost in Bavaria in 1913. In our real world, that would mean this was a Procompsognathus. But again, this is Jurassic Park, a universe that has held itself separate to what we have in reality ever since our introduction to Grant's Rex theory at the JP1 dig site. Forcing a collection of films to adhere to our reality despite the fact that they've set themselves up as being unique and separate from ideas that we share in paleontology does not hold water. Suchomimus was on InGen's list as stated by Billy in JP3, and Spinosaurus was not. This checks out. But what about the dinosaurs in all of the other movies? What about the misspelled Corinthosaurus that's shown up for a split second on a dinosaur sheet by the InGen hunters in the Lost World? Yep, it's on the list, but it's also listed as being inactive, meaning they hadn't cloned one yet. Further argumentation asserts that this doesn't make sense because the animals should be running around on Isla Sorna along with Ankylosaurus and Hadrosaurus because they were a part of an earlier script. A script that was heavily revised in order to incorporate the San Diego plotline so that the T-Rex could go to the mainland. At this point, argumentation against counting this viral site as movie canon would have to mean that the entire last half of The Lost World isn't movie canon either. Due to the fact that the San Diego incident did indeed happen and is kept as canon to the Jurassic World trilogy, this renders the script dinosaurs baseless. It would be different if we actually saw Corythosaurus running around in the Lost World, but the simple fact is that we don't. Furthermore, Ankylosaurus was deleted from the script early on, and the Hadrosaurus argument is solely reliant on a piece of concept art that was used for the second movie that never made it to the big screen. By this logic, anything that goes on during production of a movie can be canon. What about Poe Dameron dying in the early script for The Force Awakens? Is that canon? What about Rambo shooting himself at the end of First Blood? They filmed that. Is that canon? What about the concept of the 1987 movie Predator being intended early on as a sequel to the Rocky movies? Is that canon? No? And you know the reason nobody takes any of that stuff seriously? Because that doesn't make any sense. Because further information has come out that debunks all of that. Picking and choosing what factually happened off of older material that doesn't gel well with even itself goes against the very definition of what canon means. Remember, it's a general law, rule, principle, or criterion by which something is judged. It's a collection or list of sacred books accepted as genuine. Due to the fact that The Lost World exists as it does today, and the fact that the newer films and websites have designed themselves to adhere to that movie means that they are doing just that. That's our sacred book. Jurassic Park, The Lost World, Jurassic Park 3. Older scripts that got rewritten and thrown out can't be considered canon. There's all kinds of other stuff in the new marketing material that helps support the films as well, like 2 surveys taken on Isla Nublar and Isla Sorna in 1993 that reveals what dinosaurs were active or living on both of the islands at that given time. Just before the Jurassic Park movie took place, this says there were 3 velociraptors being held on Isla Nublar. Is this reflected in the film? Let's ask Robert Muldoon.
We bred 8 originally, but when she came in, she took over the pride and killed all the 2 of the others.
Okay, so big 1 and 2 of the others. That makes 3. Nice. Now in a survey taken in October of 1994, we can see that the 3 velociraptors that were living on Isla Nublar are nowhere to be found. And if you watched the first movie, you know what happened to all of them. But what about the 18 velociraptors that they counted living on Isla Sorna in 1993? Well, that information was going to be updated by InGen after something that was supposed to happen in 1997. Guess what movie that references? We could talk about some of the new information as well, like the fact that some of the inactive dinosaurs on InGen's list were actually illegally bred in 1999 after Masrani bought InGen and began cloning new dinosaurs in preparation for Jurassic World. This is where Ceratosaurus and Spinosaurus come from and explains why neither of those creatures were on Hammond's list. But wait a minute, why were they said to be illegal? Well, that's because after John Hammond made Site B a nature preserve, the government made it illegal to clone any dinosaurs. Later on, that law is said to have been relaxed in 2003. because of some shady political bribery and the fact that Masrani was going forward with opening the new theme park. But due to the fact that they were cloned in 1999 while the law was still in practice, that makes them illegal species. The reason I'm spending so much time on the DPG site is because it actually repairs major holes that were actually brought up in the original Jurassic Park movies and never resolved. It doesn't create plot holes, and if anything, it actually fills the old ones in. When Dr. Grant says that Spinosaurus wasn't on InGen's list, nobody knew what the hell that meant for 15 years. There was no explanation, and that dinosaur got no backstory whatsoever. Why didn't anybody see that thing in the Lost World? Why didn't we see the Corinthosaurus in the Lost World? What happened to all of those embryos from Jurassic Park? Why couldn't they just use those for Jurassic Park San Diego? Well, there's answers to all of that stuff now. Essentially, when it comes to Jurassic Park, this is what should be held as the basis for canon. A universe and timeline for the books, a universe and timeline for the films, and then you got that weird 1990s comic timeline. Everything else is not only standalone, but is made to be standalone. Supplementary material like the websites and of course the new novel, The Evolution of Claire, are all incorporated into the movie canon, while games like 2011's Telltale Venture and Trespasser are just material that is mined for the newer material being produced. That's pretty much everything there is to know about the canon of the Jurassic Park franchise. Anyways guys, I hope you all enjoyed this lengthy video, and I hope this helped clear up any questions you may have had about the events of these movies. Out of curiosity, I'd like to know how you guys rank the canons of Jurassic Park. Which do you personally prefer? The book canon, the movie canon, or even that little comic book arc? Also, what do you think about games like Trespasser and Jurassic Park the game? Would you like someone to try and come along with hopes of incorporating a lot of that stuff into the film lore, however daunting that sounds? Anyways, I'd love to hear all of your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. Now before I go, I want to thank my game wardens, as well as all of my InGen executives. I'd also like to thank all of my park workers and InGen hunters as well. Words can't really express how awesome it is to have you guys tell me how much you enjoy the stuff I do, and I seriously am extremely thankful for everything that you guys do to help. Honestly, it means the world to me. Now I'd like to thank you all for watching this video, and hope that you all enjoy today's content. If you feel like I deserve it, I'd appreciate the like and hope that you'll consider subscribing if you are interested in hearing from me again. I'll see you all in the next video, guys, and as always, take it easy.